Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Chief Executive of the Forestry Commission and the Executive Director of the Wildlife Division, I add my voice, together with the Park Manager and the management of the Mole National Park, in welcoming you to this important event, which is yet another milestone in the promotion of stakeholder engagement and effective participation in sustainable natural resource management in this country. The Forestry Commission has a mandate to protect, develop, and manage the forest and wildlife resources of this country on a sustainable basis, and to oversee and regulate the timber industry to ensure that the nation derives optimum benefit from these resources. The mission of the Wildlife Division in particular is to work effectively with other stakeholders to ensure the sustainable management of Ghana's wildlife resources so as to optimize the contribution of the sector to human well-being and national development. Our legal mandate is derived from the passage of the Wild Animals Preservation Act of 1963, which is enabling us to develop legislation and systems to support wildlife management in the off-reserve and in the protected areas. With the Wildlife Reserve Regulation LI 710 of 1971, it facilitated our creation of wildlife reserves in representative areas of the ecological zones of this country. And currently, we have about 16 protected networks, which we are managing as a division. We are also strengthened by the Wildlife Conservation Regulations LI 685 of 1971, which allows us to develop systems and measures to promote sustainable management of wildlife in the off-reserve areas. So we have closed season and permits for hunting as part of regulatory measures. But I must at this point emphasize that all these regulations have been found to be inadequate at this time, and because they did not include community and stakeholder engagement, and we are currently revising them to ensure that major community issues are accordingly incorporated. Mr. Chairman, while we paid a lot of attention in the creation of the protected areas, we did very little in the management of the wildlife in the off-reserve areas. But this was understandable at the time in the 1960s because we had abundance of wildlife in the off-reserve areas. So all over Africa, nobody bothered about the conservation of the wildlife in the off-reserve areas. The story, however, became different 3 decades later when conservation communities realized that the off-reserve areas were getting depleted of wildlife and other natural resources, and this trend even posed a threat to the wildlife management in the protected areas. This necessitated a paradigm shift and a change in the management approach. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, in Ghana here, our early attempts at stakeholder engagement in wildlife management started somewhere in the Kakum National Park in 1989-99, when, with the support of the USAID, the Kakum National Park was established, and we initiated some community projects to ensure engagement with the communities and to engender their support for wildlife conservation. We particularly implemented the elephant biology and management project to address human-wildlife conflicts as one of the ways to effectively engage the communities and other stakeholders. The Coastal Wetlands Management Project of 1993 up to 2000 also enabled us to manage the Ramsar sites, which are wetlands of international importance, in collaboration with the disassemblies and other stakeholders to promote the wise use of natural resources in these areas. So these were some of the earlier attempts to ensure engagement with stakeholders. What are our achievements and failures by this process? We have been successful in establishing a network of protected areas as no-go areas. But we lost out on the sustainable management of wildlife resources in the off-reserve areas. And we also failed in controlling the bushmeat trade, which is making a heavy toll on our wild animals. Accordingly, the communities which we didn't make room for their involvement focused on overexploitation of the wildlife resources in the off-reserve areas, thus depleting these resources over the past 3 decades, such that by the early 1990s, wildlife conservation off-reserve was even threatening the conservation of the wildlife for the protected areas. saw the paradigm shift. Mr. Chairman, between 1997 and 1998, we undertook a comprehensive review of the wildlife sector, and one of the major outcomes of the review was the realization of the need to develop an action plan for effective engagement with the communities and other key stakeholders to enable their participation in the sustainable management of wildlife resources for both within the reserves and the off-reserve areas. This gave rise to the need for the shift in the paradigm in our national traditional wildlife conservation management, which was focused on just protection.
I'm here to really try to help all of you understand a little bit more about what this project is about. Of course, in a moment like this, what we'll remember is what I didn't say and I forgot to capture. So I present my excuses right at front, that this is a general overview and that we'll have many more occasions to talk in detail about the project. I do want to give a context and add on to previous speakers to build onto what they said and to give you a better sense of how the project will be implemented in the coming years. So again, this is the Agricultural and Natural Resource Management Project. It's a 5-year project funded by the United States Agency for the International Development. It began just a few short months ago, and it will continue until 2021. That's a short time when we talk about real change, and yet 5 years gives us a substantial amount of time to make real progress. We're going to jump in and we're going to work together and make great progress in the life of the project. The project will improve livelihoods today. The goal of the project is to reduce poverty in northern Ghana through sustainable increases in wealth and nutrition from natural and non-traditional agricultural products. So the key there is it's sustainable. The focus is on sustainable. So, well, we've already heard about the importance of protecting the natural resources, the natural environment, recognizing that communities live in those environments, and their livelihoods stem from those environments. And so it's a project that's focused on finding that balance, creating achievements both in protecting the natural resources so that they thrive long into the future, but also so that we can earn our livings, meet our needs today as community members. So the project will improve livelihoods today, as well as safeguard the natural resource base so that communities can continue to thrive long into the future. We've already mentioned that Winrock is leading a team of excellent and dedicated institutions. TechnoServe, the Nature Conservation Research Center, and the Center for Conflict Transformation and Peace Studies, each of which offers targeted technical experience to the project. The project is focused in the three northern regions of Ghana: Upper West, Upper East, and the Northern region, each of which are represented in the audience today. You're most welcome. We will closely work with community leaders and community members, including traditional chiefs, some of whom grace us with their presence today. You are most welcome. The relevant district assemblies and the government of Ghana, in particular, The Agricultural Natural Resource Management Project, I'll say AgNRM project, is working with the Forest Commission, including the Wildlife Division, the Forestry Services Division, and the Climate Change Division, as well as the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, the Environmental Protection Agency, and the Water Resources Commission.
We welcome all of you to this event. I also want to acknowledge the president of the local officials, and especially the district officials and the district assembly members. And I want to acknowledge Mr. Capelli, Ms. Hawley, Dr. Fisher, the management team from the Mole National Park, Mr. Karras, and all of my colleagues from the U.S. Mission. Ladies and gentlemen, today it's a great honor to be here. In my 30-plus years in Africa, I've thought a lot about sustainable natural resource management, and that's really why we're here today. I'm honored to be with Government of Ghana officials to launch this project as we work with communities across northern Ghana to harness their natural resources and to ensure the sustainability and long-term prosperity of those communities. From the savannas to the coasts, Ghana is endowed with bountiful natural resources: gold, cocoa, minerals, and so many more. I've spent the last weekend exploring Mole National Park, and I've been astounded by the variety of plants, birds, and animals that flourish right here. I've seen everything from warthogs to monkeys and baboons and elephants. Over the last few decades, Ghana has seen formidable growth and economic development, and its natural resources have played a major role in that growth. These resources feed families, fuel incomes, power homes, schools, and clinics, and provide building materials, medicines, and more. But poor management, coupled with climate change, has resulted in the dwindling of these resources. In order to safeguard Ghana's future, we must come together to make sure these resources are preserved, sustained, and ultimately sustainable. Through the work we are launching today, the USAID Agriculture and Natural Resources Management Project, we are pledging over $25 million over the next 5 years to help improve natural resource management in northern Ghana and help break the vicious cycle of poverty. This project is part of the Feed the Future initiative, a U.S. government initiative that combats global hunger and improves food security, incomes, and nutrition around the world. It furthers the goals laid out in President Obama's Climate Action Plan by supporting low emissions development and strengthening resilience to climate change. Through this Agriculture and Natural Resources project, we are introducing climate-smart technologies so farmers can feed their families rain or shine. We are strengthening value chains for key crops like shea and moringa. We are mobilizing communities to form village savings and loan associations so that they can together invest in their shared resources and ensure that they are productive over the long term. And we are working with the government, traditional leaders, and communities to better manage Ghana's natural resources. I strongly believe that if we all work together, we can protect our environment, natural resources, and the wealth they offer us all for the long term. Venerable Ghanaian diplomat Kofi Annan said, "Let us be good stewards of the earth we inherited. All of us have to share the Earth's fragile ecosystems and precious resources, and each of us has a role to play in preserving them. I could not agree more. Today, I call upon all of us, government officials, traditional leaders, business people, farmers, and communities, to band together to preserve Ghana's precious resources. Together, we can ensure Ghana's ecosystems are healthy and its communities thriving. I look forward to working with all of you here today to ensure bright futures for each and every child in Ghana and their children and their children's children. Thank you very much, and best wishes for this project.
Director of Operations Wildlife, Mr. David Pele, our revered traditional authorities present here, and I indulge the House to permit me to acknowledge especially my paramount chief, Nazuri Saka of the Wungu traditional area where I was born and bred. Paramount chiefs, other paramount chiefs from the Krima present here, my honorable district executives who have just been acknowledged, and I'm very proud of you. Thank you so very much for that. Members of the USAID Project Consortium present here, regional directors of government departments, other development partners. I can see some representation from SADA and other organizations. Ladies and gentlemen, it is very, very heartwarming to be part of this important occasion that is discussing a matter that is quite central to the development of Northern Ghana. I say this from a context of an understanding that poverty is almost becoming a key word in our national discourse. And when we talk about poverty in Ghana, one of the things that comes up clearly is about the development, the economy between Southern Ghana and Northern Ghana. And the key word there is poverty. Over the years, Your Excellency, before independence, during and after, successive governments have looked at poverty as an issue that has to be addressed, and a lot of affirmative interventions have been put in place to address the notorious poverty in Ghana. It's becoming quite notorious because it's defying all kinds of affirmative interventions meant to deal with it. And that requires a very important intervention at the level of dialogue to question, to understand the nature of poverty in Northern Ghana that makes it defy antidotes to poverty in other parts of the world. Your Excellency, my understanding at this point is that the poverty in Northern Ghana is one of many parameters, and it has a lot of complexities that need to be understood for us to be able to address it. These complexities cut across many facets of our society, coming from illiteracy, environment, natural resources that have not been harnessed properly and developed, and even attitude of our own people come together to produce a cocktail of misfortune that gives us the poverty that we experience today. And to be here and to join you this morning, once again, because in my reign as a regional minister, within the short period of time, I've had occasion to be part of similar interventions, and I've even launched, this is going to be the third one, of an intervention that is targeted at addressing the poverty in Northern Ghana, sponsored by the American people through USAID and other things. And I want the people here present to join me to thank the American people on behalf of the people of the three northern regions for the huge interest and commitment and investment you are putting into ensuring that we overcome poverty in Northern Ghana. A critical point I would want to mention is that I personally have a very strong conviction that poverty in Northern Ghana can never be overcome if our investments are not focused in addressing the challenges we have in the agriculture sector. And I'm very well aware of not less than 4 interventions sponsored by USAID in Northern Ghana. And for me, you have found the right spot to hit in addressing the poverty in Northern Ghana. And we are all very happy and thankful for these important interventions. As a young boy growing up in Northern Ghana, particularly in Wale Wale, and this is a matter I have shared on so many platforms. Our fathers were poor, our mothers were poor, and we had to go to school, and we depended heavily on some free food in the environment. You walked into the forest or you walked into the farmlands, and there were all kinds of natural fruits that were available for us. And we depended heavily. And one of them is the dawa, the shea tree, and so many others that are yet to be talked about in the discussion related to our food basket. And for me, I personally believe that is the reason why poverty is not being overcome, because we are actually not paying attention to what the environment has offered us and adding our skills in enhancing their availability and improving upon them and pushing them into our food chain in order to be able to widen the scope of food available and to also take it to the market to improve our incomes. And I was so delighted to hear that one of the objectives of this project that we are about to launch is to ensure that those available crops and plants like the dawa and all that will be supported in order to enhance their usefulness economically and socially. And for me, it's also another important intervention that will actually contribute immensely to addressing the poverty situation in Northern Ghana. Today's world, gone are the days when development was talked about in isolation. Today, development is not enough. It's sustainable development. Because we are not only talking about feeding the generation that exists today, but the project and the American people have thought insightfully once again in talking about feeding the future. And therefore, if we want to ensure that this world still stays here and Northern Ghana is still present here years and decades to come, we do not have to only talk about development, but we have to be talking about sustainable development. And sustainable development, particularly in Northern Ghana, cannot be achieved if we do not talk about preserving and conserving the natural resources available to us. And I'm so hopeful that this project is going to succeed. For one thing I have seen this morning, proactiveness and insightfulness is a key element in getting a project to succeed. And the choice of this gathering, this particular place, to launch this project tells me that the designers and the leadership of the program are fully aware of what they need to do to get the project to succeed. Because there's nowhere in Ghana to talk about preserving and conserving our natural resources better than the Mole Park. And I commend you so much for ensuring that we are here today, because the environment will not only help us to sit comfortably, but it will also remind us of what we are talking about, the relevance of the discussions that will go on, because looking at around, everyone will appreciate the usefulness of conserving the environment. And thank you so much for it. When I was doing my master's program in the University of Cape Coast, I have forgotten the writer of the article, but I remember the title of the article, and indulge me, that is what is important for this conversation. The title was The Tragedy of the Commons. The tragedy of the common talked about the natural resources that are available for everybody to use, and it is free for all to grab. Everybody wants to maximize gains in the environment, and yet it is nobody's business to protect the environment. And that is what sometimes will bring about the tragedy of the commons, because they are common for everybody, It's a common good for everybody to use, and we descend heavily in utilization of these resources, but nobody pauses to think about preserving these resources. And I'm very happy once again to note that conserving the natural resources we intend to harness is one key ingredient of this project. And therefore, I want to move away from this program believing strongly that it is a very integrated strategy that will address all the parameters involved in fighting poverty in northern Ghana. Some time back in the past, I had the opportunity to make a comment about something I observed that was happening. They were cutting down the shea tree in order to plant mango trees. And I reflect, by then I was then working with IBIS as the program director for the Public Participation in Local Governance program. I questioned the rationale behind it. Though I didn't find any justification for that, but I saw why that was somehow possible. The shea tree has not been actually been utilized to be found to be more economical than the mango tree. But this is the tree that God Almighty and nature has endowed the place, and it has actually stood the test of time and defied all wickedness from bushfires, and it is surviving and still feeding very many of our people. So when I find an individual cutting down a shea tree in order to plant a mango tree, it is simply because the mango tree has proven to be a better economic tree than the shea tree. And I'm very happy once again to note that even the dawa tree that has become an endangered species in our environment is now going to be given attention. And I want to call on all stakeholders present here, particularly our traditional authorities, to join us with the project implementers to ensure that we are able to maximize the gains from these trees, particularly the dawa tree. I'm really worried about it because there are very few left in the system. And you all understand that even that tree is known, particularly the fruit from the dawa, is so medicinal that it is able to deal with blood pressure, BP. People are talking about it. We really need to support all this. And once again, to the American people, you have come to discover what is useful to us and to support what is useful to us. And for me and the people of Northern Region, we are really very grateful. There's an increasing interest in investment in Northern Ghana. Today, we've seen a lot of people coming to my office and demanding and talking for support to do investment. We are very happy to receive investors into Northern Region, but we are also very aware that when that happens, it comes with certain negative externalities, particularly on the issue of environment. And for this project to come around that time, I am personally going to be interested in supporting this project to ensure that all those investment interests that are trooping into Northern Ghana do not make money and profits at the expense of our environment.